There are so many ways and materials to learn a language nowadays, which is great. But as a language learner, it is very hard to choose which book to read, an app to use, a course to take, a school to go to, and so on. There's not a perfect way to learn a new language that applies for everyone, but I think I figured out how I learned English naturally. So before I tell you about my journey of learning English, let me tell you about how a baby learns a new language naturally. There are 10 steps for a baby to learn a new language. The first step is listening and observing. From birth, babies are exposed to the sounds and the rhythm of their native languages. They listen to the speech of their parents and the people around them. They also observe facial expressions, gesture, and body language. Even in the womb, they can hear sounds from external world, even their mother's voice. The second step is crying and babbling. In the early months of life, babies communicate through crying, cooing, and babbling. These vocalizations are often their way of experimenting with sounds and rhythms of language. The third step is imitating and responding. As babies continue to listen and observe, they start to imitate what they hear. Parents often engage in baby talk, which involves using a higher pitch, exaggerated intonation, and simplified language. Babies respond to this and start to mimic these patterns. The fourth step is word recognition. Around 6 months to 12 months, babies start to recognize specific words, for example, their name or common objects. The fifth step is understanding grammar and syntax. During the second year of life, babies start to understand the basic grammar and syntax of their native language. They start to distinguish words and verbs, understand word order, and comprehend simple sentence structures. The sixth step is word recognition. As children grow, they acquired an expanding vocabulary. They learn new words just by hearing them repeatedly in context. Parents and their environment play such a big role here by providing a rich linguistic environment. The seventh step is combining words. Around the age of 18 to 24 months, so that's about 2 years, children start combining words to form single phrase or sentence. This marks the beginning of productive language use. The eighth step is error corrections and feedback. Parents often correct their children's errors gently and provide feedback. This really helps children refine their language skills. The ninth step is reading and writing. As children grow, they are introduced to writing and reading, which are extensions of their oral language skills. They start to associate written symbols and spoken languages. The last step is social interactions and play. Language development is closely tied to social interaction and play. Interacting with parents, family, and other family members provides chances to practice languages in various contexts. This is how a baby learns a new language. Now that we know how a baby learns a new language naturally, let's apply those steps to my case of learning English. First step is listening and observing. I stayed in Canada for 3 years to go to high school there. Like babies are exposed to the sounds and the rhythms of their language, I was exposed to English when I was in Canada. I listened to the speech of my host family, friends, teachers there. I also observed facial expressions, gestures, and body language from them. Step 2 is crying and babbling. Like babies communicate through crying and babbling. In the early months of my study abroad in Canada, I communicated through a few words in English. Step 3 is imitating and responding. As I continued to listen more, I started to imitate the sound that I heard. My host family, friends, and teachers talked to me very, very slowly and with very easy vocabulary. I responded to these and I tried to mimic the sound. I heard. What the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? Step 4 is word recognition. Just around 6 to 12 months, so that's about 1 year of study abroad, I started to understand and respond to everyday conversations or phrases that I heard. Something like, "Can I go to the bathroom? Can you call me later? Do you have a pen that I can borrow?" By the end of my first year of study abroad, I could understand maybe 80% of what people around me were saying to me. However, I could not speak fluently and confidently yet. Step 5 is understanding grammar and syntax. During the second year of my study abroad in Canada, I started to understand and comprehend the basic grammar that was used in daily conversations. Also, I started to understand and recognize the word order when making complex sentences in English. Step 6 is vocabulary expansion. As I kept studying, I acquired an expanding vocabulary. I learned so many words just by hearing them over and over and over again, especially having conversations with my host family, my friends, and teachers. In those conversations, I found some patterns that they used. I noticed that they say the same thing in the same situation every time. For example, when a class starts, teacher would say, "Be quiet, please. Open your textbook to page 34 and 35, please." I heard those sentences many times over and over again, and that's how I recognize and understand what they meant. Step 7 is combining words. Maybe around 18 to 24 months, so that's about 2 years of study abroad in Canada, I would say I could understand 95% of what people were saying to me, and my speaking skills improved. But compared to my listening skill, my speaking skill was maybe about 60%. So I could have conversations with people with no problem, but sometimes I still hear words that I didn't know or understand. But I could guess what those words that I didn't know meant from their body language, gestures, and also from the context of that conversation. This is the time I gradually gained confidence in my speaking skill. 8th step is error correction and feedback. Usually my friends and my host family and my teachers, of course, would correct my language errors. When I say some words in wrong word order, they would ask me if that's what I meant by repeating the sentence for me. I mean, people do that when they don't understand what they were asked. They repeat the sentence to make sure that they were asked the right question or sentence. Also, if they don't understand what I meant, they would usually say, "What? Can you say that again?" That's how I knew my English or words or something was off. So basically, I was making many mistakes when I was talking to my friends or my host family or my teachers. But that's how I corrected my own English. Step 9 is reading and writing. As I went to high school in Canada, I had to write and read in many of my courses in school. Especially English classes, I had to write many essays after reading many books. I'm pretty sure that writing and reading helped my English improve a lot. Step 10 is social interaction and play. As I made many friends in high school, I hung out with my friends after school and on weekends. I remember going to a mall near the school with my friends after school many times. So this is how I learned English like a baby. Some people might say that it's easy for you to say you went to Canada for 3 years. That's very true, and I was very fortunate to do that. But after I came back to Japan, I started to learn Spanish at university, and I did go to Spain for 1 month and Argentina for almost 2 months. But with just those short stays, I can have conversations in Spanish. What I'm saying is you can make the same environment that I was in when I was in Canada, even if you're in a place where only your native language is spoken. How did I do that? Let me explain. So let's apply those steps again, this time to my case of studying Spanish. First step is listening and observing. I started learning Spanish when I entered university. As soon as I started learning Spanish, I started learning vocabulary and started listening to Spanish songs. So basically, I focused more on listening than speaking. Step 2 is crying and babbling. As I learned some basic vocabulary, I could just say a few words to just have a very easy conversations. Step 3 is imitating and responding. As I continue to listen and observe, I try to imitate the sound that I heard. However, there weren't many native speakers who spoke Spanish around me, but there was a speaking club at the school where one native teacher comes and talks to the students. I could have conversation with him maybe for an hour. That speaking club was only held once a week. And that was the only time that I could speak and listen to Spanish out of my class. I know that that's not a lot of time to learn a language, but I try to use the time very efficiently, and also I tried very hard to mimic and imitate the native speaker or the teacher said. Step 4 is word recognition. Just around 6 to 12 months of studying Spanish, I started to understand and respond to certain words and sentences like "how are you" in Spanish. Just very easy phrases. So in Spanish, I was not confident at all at the time. Compared to my English, my Spanish skills, both in speaking and listening, were way low. Step 5 is understanding grammar and syntax. During the second year of studying Spanish, I started to understand more of the Spanish grammar and syntax that is used in daily conversations. Step 6 is vocabulary expansion. As I kept studying, I acquired an expanding vocabulary. Especially in the conversations with the native speaker, I found some patterns that I heard repeatedly. He would say the same thing in the same situation over and over again. Like when I was learning English, my Spanish teacher would say something like this: Vamos a empezar la clase. Vamos a la página 10. I heard those sentences over and over again, daily almost, and that's how I understood what those sentences meant. Step 7 is combining words. Maybe around 18 to 24 months, so that's about 2 years of studying Spanish, I would say I could understand maybe 60% of what the teacher was saying, and my speaking skill improved maybe a little bit. So my speaking skill was like maybe 30% at the time. So I could have conversations in Spanish, but it was not smooth at all. It would take me about like 15 seconds or maybe 30 seconds or even more to respond. If you are a language learner, you know that the pause after someone asks a question can be very awkward. Yeah, that's how I felt for a very long time. Step 8 is error correction and feedback. As I went to Argentina, I made some friends there, so I had some peers who corrected my Spanish. Also, I continued to take classes online, so I had some time to have Spanish in my life. Step 9 is reading and writing. While studying Argentina, I took some courses there, so I had to write some, homework or read some articles and books in Spanish. There was an exam there too, and it would take me days to finish just one exam. Step 10 is social interaction and play. When I was in Argentina, I stayed in a student dormitory, so I made some friends who were native Spanish speakers. I've got to hang out with them a lot. And this is how I learned Spanish. Compared to how I learned English, it wasn't really intense. I mean, I'm sure there are some differences between English and Spanish when learning them, but learning Spanish wasn't too hard for me. Maybe because I learned English first and then learned Spanish after. Maybe that's why. In 2018, I took an international Spanish test called DELE, which is like TOEFL in Spanish. I took a B1 B1 test, which is targeted to intermediate learners, and I failed just by 6 points or something like that. But I listened to the listening test or the listening part of the test the other day, and I could almost understand all of it. So my speaking skill has definitely improved since then. Okay, so to conclude this video, from my experience, learning a new language can be very, very hard. It takes such a long time to acquire the language you're learning. But try to immerse yourself into that language you're learning right now as much as you can. I know that most of my subscribers are from Japan, and living in Japan makes it very hard to surround yourself with English or some other languages that you're learning right now. So I prepared a language community where people can immerse themselves in the language they're learning right now. So if you are interested, I put my newsletter link down in the description, so please check it out. I will announce to enroll in the community maybe soon. There are so many schools and YouTubers who say you can learn English or a language in 6 months or a year, but to be fully confident in that language you're learning right now can take much longer than that. So for example, I have been learning English for almost 20 years now, and I do feel confident now, but I still have some words that I don't understand or I don't know that native speakers use daily. And for Spanish, I have been studying for maybe 5 or 6 years now, but I still haven't been able to speak it with such confidence. It is a very long process to learn a language, and also there's no goal when it comes to language learning. So you need to set your own goal and try to enjoy the process of it. I know it's very hard, but if I can do it, then you can do it. I love language learning, and I'm trying to learn 3 more languages now: Korean, Chinese, and Arabic. At this moment, I want to be able to have conversations in those languages by the time I'm 27. I mean, I'm right now 25. That's in 1 year and 6 months or something like that. So wish me luck. I will keep you posted on my studying. Okay, so thank you for watching this video. I hope this video was helpful for you and it made you feel motivated. Okay, I'll see you in the next video. See ya!